Yes, we are now.
Everybody get an agenda? Look at that. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Motion by Bear, second by McClellan. Further discussion?
Well, I have a question. Under old business A, should that be fiscal year 1920?
I think it's October.
Oh, October 20.
Yeah, well, hold on.
That's why I asked.
Yeah, you're good. I see.
It isn't.
1920. We'll make that clarification. Thanks, Renee. Under old business, item H be FY 1920. The other. If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same side. Motion carries. Approval of minutes for the August 17, 2019 meeting.
Those would have been sent out to you.
Did you say August?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by McClellan,
Second.
second by Diggs. Any further discussion? None, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Carries. Financials for August, September of 19.
Here's a copy if we don't have one. You have those. So, we're looking at the financial page for August. Ending September 30. So, you have a copy of it over there. We could use more.
Give me this one. Got it?
Any more needed? So there has been brought up a question about the budget in fuel and about the budget in subsistence mileage, employee mileage and sustenance. So because the vehicle is not here, when we did the budget, it was planned that the vehicle would be here. And so there wouldn't have been mileage. But because the vehicle's not here, we're now paying mileage. But you also aren't paying fuel. So does that make sense that the fuel budget looks like we're way over? I mean, the mileage budget looks like we're way over. And we probably will be, but the fuel budget's going to be under because the vehicle won't be here for another week. And right now, I think the county mileage is 35 cents a mile.
No, 40.
Is it 40 something?
40.
Okay.
49.
Okay. 45 cents a mile. So if you want to see those mileage reports, I can get them for you.
There has been something used under fuel though.
Well, in the fuel, there is money used because of, at the beginning of the fiscal, I had the emergency management vehicle from Franklin.
Oh, yeah.
And then this period, the fuel is for the rescue truck. So I borrowed E-Squad truck to do the sheltering, pull of the shelter trailer and getting supplies from Des Moines for the sheltering in Ellsworth. So I refilled the truck off of my card, not theirs.
Any questions on the financials? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion. Second.
Second, the motion by Clemens, second by Kraus. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Old business, we're going to jump over number 8, Thomas's, or number, letter A. Thomas is printing some stuff off, so we'll go with B. Emergency operations, upgrades, status.
So we obviously have moved quite a ways forward from where we were. No, the carpet did not help as much as we thought it was going to. But I have a solution here. That's laying here. So, pass this around. I found a company that does acoustical tile stuff. And so this email and then this handout is a option. So it's acoustical tile that has material over it. And so this company, all I really did was go online and ask for a sample of material. But they had within an hour, they had a representative already emailed me and talking about sample and talking about what they could do. She also requested, he or she, I don't know, requested pictures of the room and then the size of the room. So these guys they design it. So I gave them the pictures of the room and the measurements of the room. And that's what you have in that email, is what they say, what they would figure is needed for soundproofing material. The amount of soundproofing tile that we need is that much square footage.
Is this on walls?
Yes. Okay. So if you look at that second page that has the picture on it, when you look at that tile, I sent you all, did you get it? Yeah, that's the tile.
There's no picture of tile. Is that what that is?
Yeah, that's it. So what I found out is these folks will do custom design. So you can send them anything and they will put it on these acoustical tiles. So you don't just have a colored panel on the wall, but you can pick pictures on the wall, whatever. So if you look at this wall over here, I'd already talked to you guys, sent out a option for a 6-foot banner that had emergency management and then the cities that are served, and that was going to be on that wall. That was almost $200 for that 6-foot canvas type thing. But after talking to the company, they would be able to put that imprint on this material. So we would start with a 6-foot block already over there with the acoustical tile. Then, this is where I want you guys' thoughts, is that Dave and I talked about this a little bit, is that on that wall, since we're not really going to put anything on that wall, putting the emergency management logo in a 6-foot, and then putting a fire logo, a police logo, a sheriff's logo around that, and put that in like a 4-foot block.
Which EMS?
EMS, fire, police, and sheriff. And make those around that tile and make that wall our representation wall, and that would give us something to cover these tiles with, it would give us the sound, give us a lot of soundproofing already. I'd have to figure out exactly what that square footage would be to what they've recommended. But then, anytime anybody comes in, that's the wall emergency management represents the cities that are listed on the banner, and then it also works with, in cooperation with those agencies, and make a nice presentation wall. And then if we have some type of event and we need to do press conferences or something, that would be where the press conference would be held. Press would be on this end, and then whoever is presenting would be on that end, with all of that visible on that end.
So we were never going to put additional screens.
No,
over there.
But I'm guessing, you can still tell there's an acoustic issue.
there is.
We did speaker training in here a week ago, and it's very noticeable. We have one speaker up here, and it's 10 times better than it was, but it's still an issue that we need to address. So acoustically, we need to do something. We can do some cost comparison, but if we can kill two birds with one stone, it'd be certainly
It's not going to be cheap. So
Originally they talked about hanging cabinets.
I don't think that would be
Then I don't know what that would do
if we
with
drop
the
the light.
airflow.
Well, and out of that, if we do that, the baffles that hang, we're gonna cause shadowing on our table. I would think there.
Yeah, right.
So it's probably going to cost for those panels and these acoustical panels specifically, because of the material in them, it's probably going to cost us a couple $1,000s.
Is that for
But-
how many?
Well, putting that on that wall,
Just a main
I need to
one?
do some more costing, but I wanted to first touch base and see if you thought that was a reasonable thought process. Otherwise, we can just put plain, we can get plain.
I do like.
Are any going to go on any of the other walls?
Well, we probably are gonna put some plain ones on that wall.
I think you're going to always
Because
have
of rain.
them all the way around.
This wall,
Or drop the ceiling.
this wall already is gonna have 70-inch TV, 70-inch TV, and 70-inch TV. So this wall's gonna get taken up pretty quickly. That wall we still have open, and those maps are gonna go on that wall. They're gonna get mounted up and on the wall, so they're available right on the wall. And then that wall, I mean, we've still got space there.
I personally would like to see us at least go with the one that would name each community. I'm not gonna give that 6x6 for sure, that would be obviously the cost first, but I mean, and check into the EMS logo, the fire logo, maybe sheriff, whatever. But I think it'd be nice to have the one 6x6 with each community recognized under that this commission represents.
And the sample that you guys were sent, Renee pointed this out to me today in an email. They were supposed to be communities in order, and I think it's Owasso and Radcliffe that were reversed. So that would get corrected. But that's an option.
I think if we were gonna get something like that anyway, I think it makes sense to.
Put it into one of these.
But we don't have a time price on that.
No, we don't have a calculator price on it.
Just doing some math, we need 32 of the 4x4 tiles to do 512 feet, which is their upper recommendation. They said 520. They said 520 square feet is her recommendation off this handout. So that'd be 32 4-foot by 4-foot tiles, or 16 by 32 foot wall. For the optimum match.
Yeah.
So
At minimum is 312.
that minimum is 312, just to notice the difference.
Yeah,
I think whatever we do, we need to really take acoustic seriously in here, because if we light this up as an EOC, this is going to be operationally a useless room with the number of people who put in an EOC. and the diverse jobs that they're doing, you won't be able to operate. Yes, sir.
So if we got that many, plus then we'll have Hardin County right there, and then we got plenty of other things to do, all the community special events around it.
Say it again, but
So we've got to do in a perfect, their perfect idea is 512 square feet. If that is 32 panels, my math, we've got enough panels to do all the logos we were talking about, and then I'm guessing we've got enough left over that we can put, like the sheriff's office has the map of Hardin County. And most of it, we could inlay the map of Hardin County on top of, or over the big block on that big space we got right there. I think that would look pretty cool. And get us the acoustics we want.
Yeah, that's the challenge. We want the acoustics to be obviously as optimal as we can make it, but still usable as an EOC to where we have our maps, we have everything we need to function in that event that we have to use the facility for. So
I have a couple of questions. What's the price differential between plain acoustical tile and the design oil?
that's what we have. We were thinking the design was tell, they mentioned something about it, that's when I was like, well, maybe we can kill two birds. That being said, we have to look at that. Okay. The cost of that.
And then the other thing, the email indicates it was from these folks from Virginia. I'm just wondering if we can get anything local, shop local.
well,
Yeah, and I don't mean, of course, Laura, I don't think we can outfit you, but Des Moines might.
Yeah, in the old days, when I was shag carpet.
I definitely think it's something we
yeah. So what I've asked Jody to do in the interim is that we still have some of those panels out in the garage. And we've got a right angle, so we can make a right angle on that corner and try deadening the sound some more with those panels in here until we can get down the road to this. This is a lot of stuff to just looking at what their recommendation in the amount of acoustical tiles, that's one thing, and then trying to find that much and what the cost of that much is a whole nother.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I certainly encourage you, we got to do something about the acoustics in here for sure.
So that's the acoustic side. So we got the electricians were in here. Electrician was in here this last week, and we're on their schedule. Don't know exactly when, but there's already electrical in here. Brought up, and actually the wires have been strung to all of these outlets. So we're not, the only thing we have to string yet is network, Cat 5 or Cat 6 cable, whatever they call it these days. But we have to string network cable because these TVs will be on computers. And then in that storeroom, we need lighting in there so that we can see what we're doing. And Jody they put it in the courthouse. There's some new just LED strips that are about this long. And he said 2 of those would be more than enough light in there. If it's what I saw it somewhere today. And if it's what they've got, 2 strips will make more than enough light of LEDs. So it didn't sound like it was going to be a huge expense in having the electricity, especially since this is already wired. We are going to put outlets in the walls behind that map and behind this map because there's no outlets on the wall there. So there'll be a double outlet and then a double network connection in that fourplex. But they came in and did some looking and some figuring and knowing what we wanted, so I would guess within the month, by the next meeting, I would hope we have everything installed.
Which room's loose and bonds, I don't know, was 6 months.
I'm just, at this point, we're waiting on contractors.
Where's the cat 5 and cat 6 gotta go from to?
That door to the back, two for network. For video switching stuff, I don't know what you're gonna do, but that's where the Ethernet points are.
Back from there. So the electrical room where all of these and all the ones in the floor go back, are they in the upstairs or are they just back here?
They're all downstairs
They're all downstairs.
for the network.
But we're all, the electrician thought we all pulled the network cable through the same conduit that the electric's already in. Because there's only one electric through each conduit, so that leaves room for Cat 5 to come through it. So we're not anticipating, at least at this point, we're not anticipating having to rerun any conduit or anything like that. Except for on that wall over there out of the attic. Because we want an outlet over there in case we want to add.
The only reason I asked him, I will put tomorrow is the renovation was done at the police department. I think I saved them 2 boxes that were cat 5 or cat 6 in the basement. I will look to see how much is there, because if there's enough to utilize here, it's somewhat expensive. I think the renovation probably that was done was more of the 911 service point back in like 2014. So I think it's probably purchased by the 911 board, which is not this commission, but
Well, right now it's sitting there, not the
it's sitting in 2 boxes, and it's an option. I will look to see how much exactly, but I know there's there. Just trying to save on the cost of something that we've already got. Like,
The other thing that I did not receive back any information. I've emailed this format out to 2 sign companies, and I still have to stop it out of calls. But I asked Sign Creations in Marshalltown and Getting Signs out of Hampton to quote me what this would be on a 4x6 panel out here that would just set from the building out 6 feet, 4 feet high, and then we could externally light it. And try and save it, because once we go to a lit sign, if you go to the plastic sign and put light bulbs inside it and all that, that sign becomes more expensive. This, on a solid board or plastic, whatever they put them on, would last, and then all we'd have to have is like a double light over the top of it that comes on at night. And we wouldn't have to spend a lot of money running conduit and putting sign mount stuff up. And the other is that to try and figure out how to put a lit sign on top of that concrete wall or wherever, that's going to be more. The thought had been about putting the sign on the building. And if we try and do something on the building, then we've got to run wires out of the building and do that to light that signage on the building. So I did not ask for a price on the sign on the building. I just asked for this. So this one is an idea. The reason this was sent to you in the format it is, one of the questions was, can we take Iowa off the top? Yes, you can take Iowa off the top. The Emergency Management Association back in 2010 put out a recommendation to try to standardize all of the logos across the state. Sheriffs and Deputies Association made it mandatory. We did, the EMA Association doesn't make it mandatory, but I think sheriffs and deputies make it mandatory. If you're going to use the logo, you have to have certain. Did I correct?
We tried this couple, we got a strong arm, but we're close.
Okay. So this is the design. In talking to some past people, we can move Iowa out of here and put Iowa down here, or we can just take it off. Again, it's a recommendation. It is not mandatory.
You remind me where we're looking at putting it again?
Right between the flagpole and the building. So it would set on posts. So they'd have to have like a 10, probably a 12-foot post. But what I'm asking for is so that it sets right above the concrete. So it would look,
We're talking at angle so you can see from the edge of table coming off the side street. Is that correct?
right. But if we have a double sign, if we just have a plain double sign, and like you guys have, because I've got to go up to the plastic place and see if they can do that. Then both is coming up whatever this street is, you would see it from that street, you would see it from both sides coming up Edgington.
And it's not gonna block the view.
No, because it would be 6 feet doesn't even come to the flagpole.
So you're looking 4x6 plastic. Do you want it aluminum or do you want it plastic?
I was going to leave that up to the sign company, something that is very durable. With all of the materials out there now, it's.
Most of it that we get for stuff like that, that we get for people, it's for the outdoor, a lot of it is the aluminum. It's a thin aluminum that you can get.
And you can put it on both sides. And that would be my.
Probably be more durable than plastic. It is more durable and lasts longer. The plastic is durable, but with the wear and tear of weather and hot sun and everything else, it does become a little brittle. More brittle.
So aluminum.
Ours is just an example, was the bench material that you see everywhere,
Oh, yeah.
dedicated to whoever. So plastics recycling makes them. So our sign that they just cleaned up for us. I got it. Plastics recycling did it. It's 8 foot by 3 foot, and then they engrave. It says Owl Falls Police Department. It sits out in front of the building. They can do both sides of it. They can do the color if they want. So that's what I think you were talking about, the other option.
Yes.
Talking to Jim up there.
Yes.
And so
We were hoping it would be there.
well, that is an old picture. That's
I guess
all
the thing is down below. A sap.
yeah, that actually is completely. But
That's not it.
no, that's not it. So anyway, it's the same material that all those benches are made out of. And they can design and grade it, put whatever colors they want.
And that's recyclable plastic. It would be from the plastics people out of Falls. I would guess they would even give us plastic recyclable posts.
Yeah, they have, and that's what I did with mine is, ours used to sit kind of at an angle in front of the police department, and people walked on it. So what I did was had them bring it back out there, they cleaned it all up. They stuck 3 6x6 plastic posts, where now it's going to sit up like this where people don't walk on it anymore. Jim, the owner out there, huge in the community and support-wise. It'd probably be a decent deal. I don't know what type of deal, but it's probably worth looking into. Tom's contact him and say,
Yeah,
this is
I don't
what
have to stop
this is what I'm thinking about. So at least it gives us an option. I'm not against the metal signs either. It's just another option.
So I guess my question would be, are you really set on I'm just looking at the dollars, and it'd be much cheaper to do a double sign than it is the internally lit. That sign's
I think it'll take
plastic.
up the target as well.
Yes.
I would say.
And the wind, what I find was, there's a lot of churches have those plastic ones, and then the wind gets into them, and all of a sudden you've got a rope just from the wind event.
I think something like Matt was saying, the cold, that plastic just becomes brittle over time, so. So I would think the exterior lid, most likely like aluminum, or if this, the composite is, you know, cost, there's reasonable options.
Okay.
Prices.
So that's kind of where we're at with the EOC upgrades.
Question, if you'd like, I have no problem doing this.
Go ahead.
This week, the remainder of this week, I've got to go with our street department to go get our sign because they don't want it. So I can bring it back. If the commission here, you mentioned it, is okay with this, when I go get the sign, I can speak with Sabrina out there and go, two-sided, your material, this is what we're kind of looking at, can you give us a rough quote? I don't have a problem doing that if the commission wants me while I'm out there.
I guess at this point, I'd ask what the commission feels.
I think it's.
I think we check our cost on a couple of different.
Yeah.
Well, I'm asking about design.
So I'll be honest with you, when I first seen it in Iowa, having an Iowa county, it kind of caught me a little bit. I personally would like emergency management Hardin County. It just threw me going Iowa County, but, and
Either that or flip-flop Iowa.
the Hardin County emergency management Iowa.
I mean, either that or
Or I mean, other than Clemens, we could just do stuff Iowa, like a Tiger logo.
I actually like this because I've seen the trailers up at Ellsworth College, and this is the logo that's on the trailers.
Isn't.
So
This is the logo that will be on the video.
yeah, there's mine. There it is. So there's actually a sign there right beside the wall. Now it's going to sit upright instead of.
Disclaimer, children not included. It's just an example.
See, as Thomas mentioned, I think the commission needs to decide here to prove, do we want to go with this, or does the commission want to take Iowa off, or whatever your pleasure is? If it's me voting, I've seen them on the trailers, this is why I said, well, that's what I was used to looking at. This is the accepted logo, but not mandated logo. So
What are you gonna put on your vehicle, on your trailers, on pretty much everything brand? Just like that, okay.
See, I'm like Dave, I was, in the beginning, I didn't like it, but I'm all right.
I don't care. I mean, I'm not gonna drive by. I'm sure drive.
Somebody probably will drive by and go, but
if you look at your polo, Tom, I mean, that's it.
As long as it matches. So if
Yep.
it's gonna be that way, it's gonna be that way.
No,
well, and that's what's on, if you look at your letterhead, no, it's not.
Oh,
That one has the Iowa.
Yeah, it does.
I honestly.
but easily, it's fine. Hardin County, Iowa, or anything like that.
But then I get a motion for Chief Parks to acquire.
So moved.
Motion by Cullen, second by Clemens. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Aye.
You don't like the Iowa?
I'd move the Iowa, it implies, to me, it implies it's a state agency. I'd move it after Hardin County.
We can do that too. I mean, so the recommendation was either Iowa there or Iowa behind the county. Just,
I prefer the latter.
it's,
Hardin County, Iowa.
So a little more like this, Mayor?
Yes.
So more like this
So-
instead of.
and that would, yeah, that'd be fine. And I'm fine with taking Iowa out too, but
Well, assume the prices have been the same.
right.
Regardless of where Iowa's placed, because it's going to be the same amount of revenue. So it's,
if I bring it out there, I want to tell her. Sure. We didn't do anything. Well, we actually did have, we had a second or vote on to this with one neighbor, then a little more discussion, so we might have to
Rescind the motion or
So here's another possibility. Let's keep the motion the way it was. Here's what I'm gonna do. Can you get me this, Thomas?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna have, we'll keep the motion. I'm gonna have Thomas send me this one, and we'll print it out like this, and I will bring to Sabrina, and we're looking for a 4-foot by 6-foot double-sided, this coloring. But we also want this on the bottom of the sign. It's up to you guys.
Currently, we have nothing said what this address is. So I think that's a
I think
fair.
this is what we're looking at. So I will bring her both of those, saying 4-foot, 6-foot, double-sided, this coloring, basically to state all this, and they can design it and send it to me. and go, here's the cost on it, and maybe something we're not interested.
So my question is, do you guys want to just really make him a motion with the Iowa behind county?
Sure.
Or to look at both.
Who made the motion?
I guess I did.
Second by Clemens. We can amend it to get prices for both, we're going to get proofs of both. What
I
I
get
get
points
for
of both.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
all in favor of that.
Yeah.
All opposed, same sign. Okay. Real quick, one thing I'd add on the status is the IT, the monitors are in, it's just a matter of getting electric recording. Like Tom said, by next month, we should have the monitors up. It's come together, I think, remarkably well. So baby steps forward to get there. Item C, I believe it was emailed out to you, complaint comment policy. Original one that I typed up with, perhaps a bit irritated when I typed that one, so 4 pages down to a page and paragraph, so.
Just saying, Sheriff, you got cojones on the front page, just say something.
Oh, true. So,
Right?
did everybody have an opportunity to review this? Thank you, Ben.
You're welcome.
This is very similar to what I have at the sheriff's office on how we handle comments or complaints. There's been some discussion, I don't think really formally at an entire county-wide level, but something that Mike and I talked about. She was very interested in possibly putting this on our website, and a drop-down box, they could click EMA, they could click sheriff, they could click supervisors. They had a positive experience at the courthouse, let the boss know. They have a negative, the boss should know. And I don't think it's any different for EMA. If there's a positive interaction, I'd like to hear about it. If there's a negative, I definitely want to hear about it. But it just gives our citizens a platform to air a grievance or give a compliment, but at the same token, it gives us an opportunity to vet them a little bit, not these second, third-hand anonymous complaints that, as I've expressed before, don't hold a lot of credence in my opinion. So, does everybody have it? If there's any questions, any suggestions, by all means, I'm open. Sorry. But it kind of went from a complaint policy to, as a discussion with IT, that perhaps a comment complaint would be better. Because we should have a platform for people to acknowledge good deeds done by our staff, as well as that people think that's a viable policy for following through on complaints, or that are in a motion to approve that policy. If there's any changes that would like to be made, by all means, we'll discuss and address them or make any changes or tweaks.
I think a motion to approve policy.
A motion by Kraus, second by Barrett. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Sure. We'll jump back to item A, fiscal year 1920 budget. Just goes out.
So, it came to our attention.
This one is 100% on me. I'm not even sure it was the January meeting, I believe. We opened the public comment or the public hearing for our budget. At the public hearing, closed the public hearing, and we moved on to the next agenda. We never really formally voted on or adopted our budget. 100% my fault. It was brought to my attention and rather the state's attention. Why, but anyway, that's what we operate. So, contacted the state. Apparently, that's not an uncommon thing. Check with our auditor what we need to do. Check with our auditor. She's like, it happens regularly. You need to adopt it at your next meeting, which is tonight. So that's, again, 100% on me. I just moved on after we closed the public hearing to the next item, and we never formally adopted the budgets. I know, I'm pretty sure you didn't watch the video. That better fix it. So much, you know, it's a good way to watch it. So,
We did watch the video.
we did watch the video, and I jumped right from closed it to next time on the agenda. So I apologize to everyone on that. That was 100% on me. So I would entertain a motion to formally adopt our budget as discussed.
I see.
We have a motion by Newgard, second by Neary. Any further discussions? There's been no changes as presented. So, no further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Well, and we did call, I called the DOM guy that I deal with and trying to get the budget put together. And he was like, not a big deal. It is what it is. The budget's there and you're operating off of it. Make a note and correct it in the future.
That's been correct. Item D, EOC training exercise room reservation policy.
So Micah has had a calendar for a long time of all of the conference rooms at the courthouse, engineering room, stuff like that. And it is a computer process for outside entities. So if one of the cities wanted to hold a meeting in here, some type of educational meeting or whatever, they would need to contact Dave or I to be able to schedule the room. But for internal employees that have access to the Outlook calendar, they can just go on their calendars and access the calendar, put their event in, and then that comes as a request to Dave or I to approve. And it's in here that the purpose of this whole building and this room is for emergency management and trying to keep that at the forefront so that it doesn't get used for every Tom, Dick, and Harry and every meeting that somebody wants to hold. The other is that I shared a room in Franklin County, and we had somewhat of an operations center open during the sheriff's funeral up there, and a meeting was decided to be called, and they kicked us out of that room. There was 4 or 5 of us operating in there, and they kicked us out of the room and said, you'll have to find another place. So we had to tear down the tables, tear down all the displays, and move to an office because we weren't running an emergency operation. So this is part of this is kind of from past knowing how processes go, maintaining that if anything's scheduled in here and we have a disaster, anybody can get kicked out because the emergency takes precedence over anything else.
That being said, we want the request so we can, I don't want to say monitor or govern, but keep it available for the emergencies, but we also want to utilize it.
Yes.
I mean, I think the full time, we could bring in 30, 40 people and host a one-day school here. It's great for Hardin County, it's great for the city of Eldora, so we want to utilize, we just want to be able to maintain that control that if we do have an event going on, it's still first and foremost emergency operations, and we can't lose sight of that.
We already have it scheduled twice. It's next week or the next week. Fire Service Training Bureau out of Des Moines, out of Ames, has asked to come up and do instructor updates from the Bureau. So they asked if they could use the room, if we had a room big enough to bring in area instructors. And then Deputy Lemke, I believe, came over. So the Sheriff's Office is going to be hosting a Child Protective Services training here, and they're expecting, Lance told me they're expecting 50 people, so I'm going to have to find some chairs. But that's already scheduled here. The other was, when Lance was here 2 months ago or 3 months ago, when we had the joint meeting, and Lance and I talked about this before, is that there is consideration that they would possibly like to move the elections to here. And so, and that's not a huge issue either, because elections can be scheduled.
Unless they get the building.
Yeah,
Right. Well, yeah, you wouldn't be able to pick them out.
Especially if it's a federal election.
Yeah. But that's just one of the things that is out there.
Is there going to be any kind of a policy or anything regarding what organizations, I mean, I'm not thinking anything off the top of my head, but what organizations can use it and maybe not?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, it's a government building, so there is some rules out there.
Well, it's county. So I suppose we would go with the same guidelines that the county does for
We rarely.
using courthouse property, or I would imagine we'd have to run on some of our guidelines because technically it's county property.
Ladies, 14-hour auxiliary, you probably not so much. Right? I mean, that's my question.
Well, we're not renting, right?
No, we're not renting. It's a room.
I know the political organizations use the engineer's office, political parties. I've met in those places. I'm, like I said, I can't think of anybody right out there.
We're in a vision more for county trainings, maybe, one of the cities, well, you got a training room up there, but say Eldora wants a citywide meeting with all their city employees.
Eldora PD's done a reserve graduation over here before.
It'd be a venue that we could sit, let's get into the private sector or some of those, I'd say we wouldn't be case by case, but I've told him there's a lot of one-day FEMA courses out there that we could host and bring those 40, 50 people into town. Whether they spend the night at also Ready Center, but we do lunch here in town, and a lot of one-day things like that. Still geared more to the inmate public safety world is what I'm envisioning. But that being said, doesn't mean we can't go outside the box for some others.
Well, I know we don't have a policy on our rooms either, but there's not near the equipment in our conference room, only with the smart loader or whatever.
Well, and the other part is that there's, with all of our equipment, it's going to have to be somebody here that's going to be part of the limiting factor on the equipment. Because, I mean, Micah and I were here yesterday, making sure that everything was, because last time we had issues. So we double checked everything yesterday and I checked it again today. So some of that's going to be, we'll have to have, it's going to be so that somebody has to be here. We have to let them in because we're not just going to pass a key to somebody.
In my vision is typically more on the Monday through Friday normal business hours where myself, Jody, Thomas, somebody would be available.
Like City Union, we classroom type situations or space, this would be a facility.
But yeah, say Union Fire wants to come up here, fire
Yes.
ambulance wanted to meet somebody.
We probably could have used it for that county meeting.
Well, and we are gonna use it in November. Is it November or December? November. Because Whitten Fire is the agency for the county fire radios. And since we plan on having this completed, we put the request in, and Whitten was more than happy to move the meeting to here. And so we're gonna host the fire meeting here and show off the building and hopefully get some outside. Fire Service Training Bureau will be doing another update with new firefighter training. The next edition of the firefighting training is coming out. So this month is only for staff. And then the fire departments are going to be invited in a few weeks to train also. So. We can do EMT in here. Yep.
No, I think there's a ton of opportunity now that we have the
I've already been requested if I would teach a firefighter one. In your spare time, we probably. So I told them I would not head down to firefighter one. I obviously would assist with classes, but the firefighter one's 140 hours, and no, I don't have that much spare time, so.
more spare time.
If you keep going the way you are, you're gonna have a hard job, and I'm going to a new retirement.
I would, people are comfortable with the kind of the game plan of the reservations coming to Thomas or I. Again, we're not going to sit there and open it up to just everybody, but we want it utilized, at least me personally, as often as possible, as long as it's training meetings conducive to city, county government, or if the state wants to come and use it.
Well, even like the auditor, if the auditor wants to bring, if Secretary of State wants to bring in elections training, they can bring elections training here.
If I understood this right, internally wise within the county, this is what it goes to the outlook county.
Yes.
Externally wise, we would still have to contact one of you two.
Yes.
Okay.
Move to approve, are we looking for a motion, Jim?
Yes, we have a motion by Doug, second by Kraus. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item E, ICAP IMWCA update. Possible action is going to be, we met here 2 months ago, somewhere there.
Well, we met when we talked to the supervisors.
Yeah, we discussed it on that 2 months ago. And then about Hardin Risk handles all of the county's workman's comp insurance. ICAP handles all of the equipment that the EMA and 911 owns. They should become workman's comp for Thomas. We dealt with a local insurance agent. He put in a call to IMWCA, which is Iowa Municipalities Workers' Compensation Association or something. They are not releasing a quote based on Thomas's job description. That differs significantly from 90. I've been playing, I haven't been playing phone tag. I've just been getting virtually no cooperation from IMWCA on what specifically in his job description was an issue. They gave me a couple of examples, which I think are total BS. So we're looking at what we need to do for work comp coverage. I'm going to continue to pursue that because I think there's just something deeper going on. They represent or provide work comp for several other Hardin County or several other county emergency management coordinators. Thomas's job description is basically almost mirror to every other county EMA. but for whatever reason, Hardin County's not being offered coverage through IWC. So we're going to put in a call to the local guys, see if their EMC is an option. What are
There's several other counties around that have other work comp carriers across the state, so we've got other options. But the information that I've talked to Mark about is not what IMWCA has for information, so.
I got a question nobody here is going to be able to answer. If they're concerned about your job description and providing workman's comp, right? IMWCA is the workman's comp for City of All Falls, the police department. If they provide workman's comp for my job description for an officer, why would they not want to provide a quote for you on your job description? That doesn't make any sense. I'm not saying mine's more dangerous than yours, but in job description, it's probably listed that it is. So they are providing workman's comp for the law enforcement agency as well as the whole city of 42 employees, whatever.
I've called multiple times, I'll send you an email this afternoon. Today said they're making contact, I haven't got your email. They're not even getting contact. Our local insurance agent contacted them on September 9th and said, let us know what the issue with the job description is. They never emailed back, never contacted them back. So I personally think there's something deeper there or some other reason they're not wanting to. I just.
Like they know Thomas.
Quite possible. I haven't got to the bottom of it yet, but I'm going to persistently pursue.
Somehow there is a notion out there that I actually do paramedic work and that I do firefighting.
Neither of which is
true. The job description says I go and assist at fires, and I don't get in a fire. The other day I went to Steamboat and Chief Williams was there, and he was standing on the hose by himself, so I got on the hose behind him to help him manage the hose. The other night I went to, is it Union? Had the trailer fire the other night. And I got in gear and just walked around the site with the chief, looking at what cause and origin might be, and nothing big. I'm not fighting fires, and I'm not doing paramedic work. But somehow that information has been relayed to IMWCA, which is inaccurate, and they won't call us back so that we can clear it up. So you're getting no response from them.
I'm not stopping.
Even Blackwell, can I ask if you can tell us, previous employer, Franklin County, who was there?
IMWCA had the exact same job description.
But one of them, when I called him the first time, was his understanding was the sheriff that his deputies to sit with deceased bodies, so they call it the EMA to do that. And for him, I was talking to the sheriff, and he couldn't be further from the truth. So, I mean, there's information that they're basing things off of that would not have been part of the job description whatsoever. There was nothing that was submitted to them that would have applied. First of all, I'd be what said. It's never going to be called the EMA to go, hey, we have a DOA and we're tied this in there, so you need to come to. It's absolutely an asinine statement on this cat's part down there. So I'm going to continue to be persistent. I don't care if they cover it. No, we'll find another avenue. We get some type of an answer.
But somehow or another, they have been misled.
On what his job
description,
what his
job description, what he's doing actually.
It certainly appears to be the case. I don't know that for a fact, but it appears that they've got information that's not consistent with what his job description is, what our expectations of it is.
Yeah, but if I smell skunk, it's going around too, right?
If there's something.
I received a phone call from BJ before I came to this meeting, and he claimed that the pending personal risk, something from, can't break them, but that and it's that they don't cover paramedics or firefighters. He evidently received a call from the insurance company and said that's why.
Well, it makes sense.
But I said-
Don't call the EMA chair,
Right.
don't call the EMA commission.
So-
I'd reach out to some of those.
Well, he gets contacted by a lot of people, but no one else does, so.
But my take would be, nothing would have been mentioned as a firefighter or a paramedic in that job description. It was, I see the paperwork that was submitted, emergency management, it's based on the salary as the job description that is, again, close to your image of.
Yeah,
Why would he get the call and not all three of them? I think he made the call. Is my thinking.
If what you said, they have an issue with paramedics and firefighters,
And it's not,
Iowa Falls does have paramedics and firefighters, and we are represented by ICAP, IMWCA for workers' comp, so therefore that doesn't
They
make
cover
any
your-
sense.
That is true.
We have paramedics and firefighters.
Yeah,
There's city
employees.
they are covering the paramedics.
Paramedics, cold
So that doesn't make
employees in the
sense.
city of Iowa.
And anybody that doesn't employ with the city, even the paid volunteer fire, they are covered under ICAP, IMWCA. Yes, so.
So I will continue to look into what the issue is. I'm going to push it until I'm going to do my best to get an answer. Thing is, if there is an issue, highlight the job description, what your concerns are, send it back, so we can see if that fits what our expectations are. If they're not, or if it's an adjustment we need to make as a commission, so be it. But right now, we're blind as to what the hang-up is. So, and I've given, except very little, virtually no cooperation. Moving on, new business. I'm a food account / policy.
This was brought up the last meeting. So we discussed this a little bit at the last meeting. The reason for a food account and the reason for a resolution. Number one, when I was in Franklin County, the auditor said you had to have a resolution that said you were going to spend public funds on food for what that purpose was. So these purposes are outlined that it is. Last night, actually last night would have been a prime example, was at Quick Start on a hazmat incident, had Waterloo Hazmat, had fire EMS there. We had multiple people on the phone, and it got past supper time. So it would have been nice to have some kind of budget to provide food for the firefighters that are still out there. The flooding back in March at Iowa Falls, we did sandbagging. Everybody had to scramble to figure out who's paying for food to have that. We can do that with this type of account. The other is that if we would open the EOC, so you guys coming in here, I'm not providing you supper. I'm not providing, I do have coffee out there, but that's my coffee. I buy the coffee, so you're using my coffee. It is not county money. I want to make that perfectly clear. But it would be if we had, like the trainings, we had, if we have trainings in here, if I got 25 or 30 officers in here, coffee and cookies, or we're opening an EOC, then we need to be able to feed people to be in here on an 8 or 12-hour shift and bring in food.
We have officers who bring ready donuts, not cookies.
Well played, my friend.
So it is not to buy treats for everybody. It's for very specific purposes, and I'm pretty guarded on what that is. The sheriff can ask, but I still make the decision on the account. So,
But I think even if the blizzard that we had last winter, we have people sheltered in fire departments.
yes,
Those people are gonna expect to be able to at least have a bottle of water, and a sandwich or something, and I think it's on us to be able to provide some things where volunteers would be a prime example, where asking these people to come out, and volunteer to help us sandbag or whatever it may be, but at least we should be able to just provide them, be able to hydrate them and give them some nutrition as needed, so.
we talked about this last month, that like the sandbagging Iowa Falls, the college kids came out there to help us sandbag, and it was, what, $1,000 for the pizza? By the time we fed, or for the food, by the time we fed 150 volunteers.
I know, speaking from experience, you know, a 4 or 5 hour fire scene, somebody comes rolling up with cookies, donuts, or coffee. So, yeah.
Gives you more energy all of a sudden. Just somebody likes you.
Yeah, so you're appreciated.
Right. Well, I can go buy you donuts and coffee as opposed to helping you fight the fire.
Yes, yeah.
I'm good with that.
There you go.
Very true, yeah.
I'm not sure who you're back up here.
Well, I do hate to say, but, I mean, and I don't have a problem with the food at all, and I don't have a problem with service bins. I did that for my election workers. Coffee mugs and other things, I get a little weary because it's been abused in the past by a couple of.
That probably should just be the cups and plates and things for
The styrofoam.
Yeah, okay, I'm thinking you said like you meant coffee mugs they hand out to.
no.
Real coffee mugs with the logo on it to give to
No.
people. Okay. All right.
No.
I agree, that's what.
In fact, we can take the service pins out of there, we can scratch that, because that's,
I don't know.
Maybe if you just put coffee cups, so I think we'd say coffee mugs, so everybody thinks of the.
That's what I was envisioning.
Yeah, and I think-
Service.
Yeah. Yeah.
Consumers actually say.
Yeah, tokens
Yeah.
of
Relation to a
service.
token. Here's your complimentary memorial plastic or styrofoam cup.
So we can get a shark right in.
Yes, I think that's right.
See, and I did buy, like, some of my coworkers have worked. I would like in England's 5, 10, 20 years.
right. And this was from Michelle Giddings in Franklin County, so this was her resolution, so
Okay.
you know what, I
What are we striking, just coffee mugs or that
That's
whole?
the cups, I think.
Mugs.
You want to just like
Yeah,
coffee
just put
cups,
coffee
Scratch
cups,
service
and then
pins.
We can
Well-
turn to the fancy mugs.
It says tokens of service such as, and then lists all those things.
Yeah, that's what I thought, that's coffee.
let's just take it as a token
Thank
of
you,
service.
Service.
Let's just take that little sentence off.
So we're gonna strike that whole sentence.
No, we need public.
Probably need to move coffee.
Just put a period after the word events.
Yes.
whatever that's right, actually. So that makes it.
Exercises anyway, yes.
And then we would,
If you're gonna get some sort of beverage, obviously you
can
have to
put, I
get
mean-
something to hold the beverage in.
Right.
That's understandable.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can just get that out of your regular supplies budget or something. But I mean, you could add during training, exercise, and events or other public purposes. I don't even know if you would need to do that.
because I think training exercise, that's covers.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
let's just
So then
leave the period.
All right.
Further discussion on that. Go, Andrew.
So I make a motion that we adopt the resolution for the public purpose, or how we want to call it, solution, we don't call it. Food account policy resolution with the changes.
Okay, second, and we'll do it. Motion by Dave. Roll call vote. Ackley,
Yes.
Alden,
Yes.
Buckeye, Eldora,
Yes.
Hubbard, Iowa Falls,
Yes.
New Providence,
Yes.
Owasso,
Yes.
Steamboat, Union,
Yes.
Whitten, Hardin County Supervisor,
Yes.
County Sheriff, yes. Iowa Falls PD,
Yes.
Radcliffe,
Yes.
You got the other photos.
no, there are no names.
So I will correct this copy and then have Dave sign on it and then take it over to Jessica tomorrow and we'll add a line item in the budget.
Continuing on new business, B, open house for completed EOC.
This is just a question. We talked a little bit about that last month, but there wasn't a quorum. So my thought is that we've spent a lot of, this has been here a long time. The public's been expecting something out of this for a very long time. We will have it up and running and have a very nice facility. I think it would be appropriate to have an open house and invite public and other state officials and whatever to come in and see the change in the building and explain the purpose and some of the facilities to them. That again, that puts the food back under this as a public purpose, but I'd like to make sure that we just make it very specific so that there isn't any misunderstanding of what you guys feel. But I'd like to have an open house with cake, cookies, coffee, donuts, powdered sugar donuts especially.
I think it'd be nice to showcase it to, the powers that be. And like I said, this place has been here for 9 years, 10 years. And I think a lot of people have driven by, just never seen it or understood what the purpose or intended purpose of it was. So once we're up to stuff, I think we want to showcase it a little bit.
Well, I think it's showcasing it too, once you have it up and running with all of the, availabilities and uses and all that stuff, I think you're gonna find, that's just gonna spread how much you have available to them for training.
Yeah, because I'm looking at Dave, Gene, Terry. Don't you guys have city trainings, manager trainings, mayor trainings, things like that that you hold in regions and
Yeah, they do some.
Well, if we need to take action on that, to we can make a decision on what we're a little bit more finalized, maybe.
I'd like to have the open house when if we make a decision on the sound deafening,
yes.
the screams, because I'd hate to bring somebody in here and go, we've done a lot. Well, here's our plan, what we're gonna do in the future years, but it would
Almost have it when
almost a finished product.
And when you bring all those people in, you're gonna want that sound thing
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
done by then.
You don't want flash and the screens up and the maps up and just get it store off, you want it to be classic.
You're yakking and echo.
Well, it's gonna be a real valuable resource for all
Yes,
the
right.
cities and the county and all the fire departments.
Yes.
Absolutely, et cetera. And we ought to introduce people to it. I think it's a good idea. They can come back with a date certain when we've got the sound definitely
Right.
screens up.
I think once we can showcase it, you might have some of those other entities that, well, now that we know, we'll raise our hand and volunteer to host the training. It's really limited on our county where you can sit 40, 50 people. So, all right, so we're ready to wrap up. Basic plan and ESF.
So this will come to you in an email. I am finishing up some revisions on the ESFs. They are due to the state. We're behind, but I've asked for an extension, so, but the commission does have to approve all of these, so I will send out these updated documents. And what they are is the emergency operations plan for the county. So how the county, how the emergency operations is gonna go, how the agencies, fire, EMS, law enforcement, mayors, how you guys play into a county disaster, and how we as a county can assist you in a local disaster. When I looked at them, I'm having to change quite a few things in them. They were pretty general, so it said county departments. But when you're under ESF 5, I think, it's all communications, or 5 is emergency management, 2 is communications. Well, it didn't say Iowa Falls Police Department communications. It didn't say Hardin County Sheriff's Office communications. It just said PSAPs. So I'm getting it more detailed so that it is Hardin County specific. And then in this next year, we'll do training on it. My plan is to do some EOC training. I have to kind of walk into that gently because that typically includes county employees to come in and assist, like an auditor to come in and be the finance person, because they're already a finance person. They can keep track of numbers and receipts and all that stuff. Some logistics, things like that. So that's coming, but these I'll email out to you, and then we'll plan on November having a document that says we, as a commission, will adopt these as printed.
Any questions regarding ESFs? I will want the record to reflect, when I was the EMA, these were not ESFs that I addressed. Okay, coordinator update.
That's how come we have an extension.
Those were the numbers I had to do. Coordinator update.
African swine fever exercise. I think I had 5 people participate. We were all at the courthouse. Renee was there, JD was there, a pork producer was there, ISU Extension came in, and then we were on the phone with Department of Ag out of Des Moines, and worked on some questions about what happens if swine fever comes in. What do we do with exclusion zones? What do you do when the farmer decides they want to bury 6,000 hogs on their property? Those kinds of questions came up because some of these sites, as we looked at it, Micah from GIS was in there. As you look at it, some of these hog sites are just the acres that the hog site sits on. So then if that farmer's supposed to bury the hogs, you've got to have like 40 acres to bury 5,000 hogs. If he doesn't own the property next door, he's not built on 40 acres. So what do you do with those? What do you do with movement of them? One of the things that came out of it was that so the federal government, USDA, says that if they know of swine fever coming into the United States, they will automatically put a 72-hour stop movement. But they give all of the producers across the United States 12 hours to finish movement. So Iowa gets pigs out of Louisiana. They are allowing that Louisiana producer then, if they've already put a truck of pigs on the road, to finish that trip to Iowa. Well, our discussion centered around, along ISU and the pork producer, was if we already know they have it, why would we allow that to come into the state? Why would we let them have 12 hours to finish that and bring that load that's potentially infected into the state of Iowa? So some of that was going on. I was tied up today. We had an incident in Iowa Falls last night, this morning, so I did not get down to the after action, but I will receive the after action on that. But I did put that feedback to Iowa Department of Ag, is we felt 12 hours time was too long. I think it really just opened the eyes of people that were participating, what it would be when we get into a full-scale disaster like that, and what's all the ramifications. What happens when people can't come off of that farm without being decontaminated. You can't go in and check them without having a decon process. Fire departments, you know how that looks when you start doing decon. That's a lot of stuff. So I'll be interested to see what the after action is from what the rest of the state had. Exercise and training, Ashbrook exercise I had scheduled. I'd like to change the date on that. I have another engagement that same day. So we're going to change that, but we are doing the exercise. So Ashbrook is going to do, Scenic Manor actually is going to do a full scale up to the point of moving. So they're going to take a wing of patients. I don't know how many patients, maybe 20 in a wing. And they're going to exercise having to evacuate them and process those patients right up to the point that they are going out the door. That's where their full scale will stop. In the basement is going to be Chief Hardin, Sheriff McDaniel, Chief Eisentrager, Director Larson for the EMS, and they're going to sit down there and tabletop. If we needed to move this many people, what's the traffic look like? How do we get controlled access, and how do we control the access around the nursing home? I've got some plans for them that they don't know about, so they're going to get a little more in their exercise than just going, well, let's just go down that street rather than that street. But we're planning on them participating in that. The last thing in there is the Iowa Falls, the county mitigation update. So I have scheduled, due to the disaster this spring, the VDR 2241, I think it was. 4421, okay. It's required by federal that those entities do a review of the mitigation plan. So I have Iowa Falls scheduled for next Monday night, and then I think I have the county supervisors scheduled for next Wednesday. We're just going to review what's in the mitigation plan and see if they want to change what's in the mitigation plan, if they want to add anything or take anything out, and then we'll send a letter out to the state and they can continue on the process of getting their federal dollars. But if we don't put that in, that stops their federal dollars at the door. So we're going to get that done. That's it. Oh, already talked about the FSTV update. The Homeland Security Emergency Management Annual Conference is in Des Moines, August 30th through the 2nd. I will be down in, or it's in Ankeny, it's at DMAC campus, so I will be in Des Moines and Ankeny those dates. And then Friday afternoon and Saturday, it's not on here, but it is, I will be gone staying in Des Moines for the State Medical Examiners Conference, Friday and Saturday. Lots of things lined up at the Homeland Security Conference. I think I've sent that brochure out to you a couple of times. It's open to anybody. There is no cost this year. What happened is we used to pay a registration fee for that, and then we get reimbursed. The state finally figured out that it was a waste of time for us to submit an invoice or a receipt to them and then them pay us back with the same dollars that they're actually putting the conference on with. So we're yeah. So done. The last thing I have is that this just happened last night. I'm sure most of you have seen it on the news, the Quick Star incident in Owl Falls. Went up there and assisted. We had Waterloo Hazmat come in and assist in air monitoring and trying to figure out what was going on. This morning, we had conference call with Iowa Department of Public Health, Iowa Department of Inspections and Appeals, the National Guard 71st Civil Support Team, Environmental Health, Waterloo Hazmat, talked about what else we could do about that. And they were ready to pull the trigger on the 71st Civil Support Team coming up and moving that whole piece of machinery out of Des Moines up to Iowa Falls and trying to figure out what was going on. And then we decided we'll just turn it back over to Quick Start and let them deal with that whole problem. So Department of Inspections Appeals, after that conference call, Department of Inspections Appeals said they would take the lead on that because they have the authority for that. So that took it out of Chief Eisentrager's lap. Chief Eisentrager and his assistant chiefs were concerned about what's the liability if we can't find anything, if we turn the business back over and then they get back in there and people get sick again, what happens? And so Department of Inspections and Appeals, after some discussion around the table, around the phone call, was that they have the authority to just close it until the threat is addressed. And I had emails with them. I've got some sitting on my email list right now that are coming late this afternoon. But they're working with a vendor, environmental health, industrial hygienist to come in and review and research their facility and see what they can do. So that was a good process last night. Chief Eisentrager was on the phone multiple times with the colonel out of National Guard in Des Moines, trying to get advice on how to handle the situation. So that worked very well. So, well, that was an addition last night.
Was it carbon monoxide again, or?
Don't know what it is. Don't know what it is, but 14 people went to the hospital in 24 hours.
Clearly, though, it's not customers, it's
Oh, yeah, employees.
kitchen area.
So remember they had a burrito. Ooh. Yeah, don't know, but anyway, that kind of took up the night last night and this morning. But it worked very well. We went to the fire station, sit down and had a conference call with all those agencies. That worked out very well this morning. So.
You're done with that, right? All right, so we'll take it over for the chair. I will take a motion for our next meeting date, which tentatively will probably follow the 911 board meeting, November 19th. Do I hear a motion? Moved. Hearing, seconded.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Kraus, second by Barrett. We are adjourned. All in favor, say aye. Aye.